All right, we're back. It's COMP391 and it's week 2, lesson 2, part 2. 222, as I like to say. Okay, we just finished talking about platforms. Again, different kinds of platforms. We're back to Blender now, and we're going to start off by doing more things, more kinds of modeling and navigation than we did last time. So last time we talked about a couple things. We've been really working with cubes a lot, right? The whole idea of making the cube. We can do a lot of different things with the cube, taking the cube apart and all that kind of stuff. We can do a lot of things with it. One thing that we haven't done a lot of is create other kinds of objects. So let's go back into creating other objects other than just a cube. We've learned basics of modeling, but here's the challenge that I want to give you now. So this is the challenge that I want you to come up with. I want you to make a face. All right? Yeah, a face. I want the face to have eyes, a nose, a mouth, right? Maybe some ears. Don't worry about the hair for now. But I want you to make a face of your own, right? And we're going to talk about this. My recommendation to you, by the way, to start off your face, is to start off with a sphere. So we're going to delete the initial cube, and we're going to do Shift A, and to create a different mesh, we're going to go with a sphere. Now, if you look at the UV sphere, on the left-hand side here, it gives us different options. There's different segments and rings. The more segments and more rings that you give your sphere, I'm just going to zoom in here so you can see, and I'm going to just go into edit mode for a second. If you see now the way it is, there are a certain number of segments and rings. If I go back into edit mode, it's gone. When I first create my sphere, I have the option to change the number of segments and rings. Let me go back out and do this again. So I'm going to go File, New. I'm going to make a new object. I'm going to kill my initial object. I'm going to zoom in right to the middle. I'm going to go Shift A. I'm going to go to Mesh UV Sphere, right? And on the left, if you notice where it says Add UV Sphere, it allows me to add more rings. If I just increase that, if you notice, I can increase this number. And if I go to 32, so I'll make a sphere that's 32 by 32, I have a lot more vertices and faces now when I go into edit mode than I would normally have. I'd like you to do this. I'd like you to make at least 32 by 32. So 32 rings and 32 segments is where I want to go into. For those of you just coming in from short break, the challenge today is I want you to create a face, all right? Your own little face, whatever face you want, right? So how would you go about, any idea, how would you go about making a face out of a sphere? Right? Now, I mean, our head is kind of spherical. You know, it's a different shape. We can malform the shape a little bit. But how would you go about, any ideas of how you would go about making a kind of a face from a sphere? Anybody? Yeah? No? No idea. Sphere, from a face from a sphere. What would you do?
Make the sides a bit straight and pull like the bottom down.
I could make it a different shape. I could deform the sphere to make it to whatever I want. I could do that. There's a couple of strategies here. One of them would be, first of all, I don't want to work in perspective mode. I want to work in orthographic mode, right? So the first thing I'd like to do is look at it from the front, right? Then what I want to do is make sure that it's an orthographic front. There's different ones. There's perspective and orthographic, right? I want to be able to zoom in, okay? So I want to get this sphere so it's zoomed in kind of close. We did this kind of last time. Remember last time when we took the sphere and we cut it in pieces and made a kind of a vase or different shapes? Well, this is our time now, our chance to kind of do this. I want to deselect all. This is my sphere. You guys can make your face look whatever you like, right? Now, if you notice, there are a number of different rings and everything else here. How about, here's my challenge. What about if I make a face, do I want to make it symmetrical? Chances are yes. So before we make the sphere, first I'm going to go into wireframe mode with the Z button, right? And what I want to do is use the B button to make a selection. I want to select half the sphere. So let's just get rid of half the sphere here. And I select all these areas. I didn't quite make everything disappear. I'm just going to try that again. And I want to use B, kind of select half of the sphere, right? Make sure that everything is taken care of all the way down to the bottom. Got to be really careful here how I do that. And if I was actually to rotate this thing, you can see that pretty much half the sphere is selected, right? Half the sphere is selected, right? Except for this middle line. See, this middle line here is not selected. I didn't select this piece. If I was to do that, let me just show you this for a second. If I select half the line, so from the middle line across, like this, then, and if I was to delete this thing, if I press X to delete, it's going to say, well, what do I want to delete? If I press vertices, I actually delete more than half the sphere. So that's not really something I want to do. I'm just going to have Control Z on that one. All right, what I want to do, I'm just going to try this again. Press the B button. That's what I'm doing here. And by the way, I'm going to just put my cursor to the middle again. I select the B button, and everything outside of the middle line as much as possible. And I got to be really careful on the bottom here because I didn't quite do that. Take a look at the bottom. My bottom and my top have to be pretty accurate. I can even kind of scroll in a little bit. But I want to kind of make it so that it's almost, but not quite, the middle line. I want to get rid of it. So here it is. So there's that middle piece. And now I want to press the X button. When I press the X button, I want to delete my vertices. Now I get this. You guys should be able to have half a sphere. So why do I want to do this? Let me show you what it looks like from a perspective mode. Look, it's like half a coconut, if you will, right? I want to be able to do symmetrical modeling here because, and this is something that I want to talk about today with you, because as we do modeling, if we don't do symmetrical modeling, the problem is that when we do one eye, the other eye will be different. No matter what we try and do, it's very challenging to do. It's double our work, actually, is what it's going to do for us, right? So we don't want that. We want to be able to do that. Okay, cool. Well, this is the thing we need to do. I need to select all here. And if I go, there's some areas that we haven't touched here. Now, if you notice, there is this camera on the right-hand side, and this on the side panel, right? This is our render, our camera renderer. So if I actually click render, right, it actually shows me half the sphere. Remember this, what am I looking at here? How come I'm only seeing it from this angle? Anybody? My camera is looking at it from this angle, right? So if I want to see my sphere, as an example, and I'm just going to go into solid mode for a second, in edit mode. If I want to see my sphere from a different angle, right, I'm just going to go back out. We're going to talk about some concepts here before we move on. So there's perspective mode, and I want to zoom out. Let me find my camera. Where's my camera, right? Keep zooming out. Oh, there's my light. There's my camera. This is the view that I'm getting. My view is almost going to be right from this camera. Well, the nice thing to do, I'm just going to pull this back again so you can see it. The nice thing to do is actually, what I recommend too, is press the N button when I want to look at the camera in a specific space. Take a look. N. Now I've got my numeric options here on the right-hand side. I want to click on Lock Camera to View, this checkbox. Check Lock Camera to View. Okay, when I click Lock Camera to View, and if I scroll in, right, now if I go into camera mode, there's a little orange view here. See this little orange button? This orange border? That tells me that my camera is locked to view. Let me turn it off and I'll show you the difference. Watch. So here's Lock Camera to View. I'll turn it off. Now it's not there anymore. Now here's on, off, on, off, on, off. Okay? If it's off, I can actually zoom in, which is probably what you want to do first. And then this is how big my view is going to be, how close I want it to be. I want to lock camera to view. And now when I turn, my whole camera repositions itself so it shows me what I'm looking at. Well, guess what? I want my camera to look at it from a different angle. Let's say I want to look at it from the front, right? I could do this, right, and look at it kind of from the front angle, like head on, basically, right? This is one way of doing it. So lock camera to view. And now when I go into render mode, if I click render, then I actually see half my sphere with the lighting coming in from the side. That's render mode, right? Okay, so all I've done here again is I've locked camera to view and I've moved my camera around so I can see what I want to see. Okay, I'm going to go back into perspective view, into front view, and I'm going to select my object. I'm going to kind of do a B-select mode and select my object again. And I'm going to zoom in by using the dot, or the deselect all first. Hold on a second here. I want to right click and zoom in, right? And I want to go into front ortho mode. There's front ortho mode. And if you notice, I also see my camera, which is right here. See my camera? So I'm going to kind of, here's my camera. And if I look at it from the angle, let's take a look here. Look how close my camera is now, because I put my camera there because I changed views with my camera. Okay, if I go back into camera view, it looks like this, right? If I want to pull back out with my camera, because I still got locked camera to view, I can just scroll out here so I can see a much farther away look. Okay, back to front view. I want to select my object, zoom in, and I want to go into perspective mode in the front, and I want to get rid of N, so I don't want to see that anymore, and I want to scroll out just a touch so I can see my object. Still see my camera in the view. Again, if the camera bothers you, you can always move it away manually. I can always go whoop, right? Get that damn camera away because I don't need it. We're also going to be talking about layers in a future class. But for now, I want to right-click on my half sphere and press dot to zoom in. Dot means the decimal point on my number keypad. That zooms in, right? And I want to go into edit mode, right? So I see the points again, and I want to make sure that it looks accurate. Let's look from the top. There's a couple of points I missed. Take a look. See how those are there? It's very important. It's very, very important that you don't discount some of these points. I want to get rid of some of these things as well, because in my and I'm going to go into vertex mode to do that. Because if I don't get rid of this vertex and then some of these, this stuff here, let's take a look at it here, vertices. What's going to happen when I do mirroring, I'm going to have extra information that I don't want. So I'm just going to go in and clean up some of these extra vertices here, right, that I didn't quite get with when I cut the sphere in half. Okay, so I've done that now. Okay, I'm going to go back into front view, and I'm still in front ortho. I'm going to zoom out, right? And again, I can reposition everything so that that's approximately in the middle. And this is a good place to start. I'm going to choose A for select all. And on the right here, like I was showing you, there's different options. One of the options, if you go to the wrench, see the wrench here on the right? It gives you the ability to add modifiers. Okay, let's click Add Modifier. And what I want to do is go to the Mirror Modifier. Now take a look what it's doing for me. It actually completes the sphere, right? Where did I go? Is that what you're asking? The mirror. I went to the wrench, and I chose the Mirror Modifier. If I go to Add Modifier in the middle, I went to Mirror. I have to have my sphere selected, my half the sphere selected, and then it creates the mirror. Why am I mirroring it? Because now anything I do to the right side happens to the left side. This is smart modeling, guys. Okay? Not always the best thing to do. And leave it, don't apply the mirror on right now. Leave it unapplied. Why? If you apply it, the mirroring will stop. You don't want that, right? So now I can go into here and I can start putting the faces in. I'm just going to take this panel away a little bit, make it a little bit to the middle. Okay, and I want to put the eye, my guess is I want to put the eye somewhere over here. Now you can put your eyes wherever you want, but me, I'm thinking my eye is going to be here. What mode do I have to come into to select this area here? What mode? Is it vertex mode? Is it face mode? Is it edge mode? What mode do you think is the best mode to be in here to make my eye, to select this area of the sphere? What would you do? Me, I'd like to go into face mode, right? Okay, if I go into face mode, that means I got to go Control Tab, go into face mode. Right now I can select certain faces. So this is my eye. This is where I'm going to put it. That's going to be pretty high up here. I'm going to kind of select, right click, and select these different faces. Yeah.
I'm sorry, how did you subdivide it?
How did I cut it in half? Huh?
How many faces did you subdivide it?
32 by 32. So when you create your sphere, when you first create your sphere, you want to go into 32 rings by 32 sections, right? And that's why it's subdivided the way it is. How did I do that? When you first create your sphere, you can do that. You know what? I'll start over for you guys, because some of you guys might be behind. But let me show you this before I start over. If I do something with this now, for example, if I extrude this eye, right, and I want to press E again for extrude and press Enter, right? And now if I actually go, actually push this thing down, look what happens to the left side. Whatever happens to the left side happens to the right side happens to the left side. I start getting that look, right? Same thing if I want to add different things, want different things to happen here, especially with the mouth. I can do the same thing with the mouth. I can select areas here with the mouth, right? Right? And then maybe choose extrude and then push them in. And it gives me that kind of look, right? So I'm starting to create my face. So let me start this again so you see where I started off, how I got this thing in a second. So I'm going to go File, New, right? I'm going to get rid of the cube really quickly. I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to use Shift A. I'm going to go to UV sphere. On the left, there's options for number of rings, number of segments. I'm going to go to 32 to make it even, right? So more the same number of rings and segments. I'm going to swoop in here. I'm going to go into front mode, into front ortho mode. I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to go into edit mode with the tab button. I'm going to deselect everything. Okay, I'm going to go into wireframe mode, and then I'm going to use the B button to select half of my sphere as much as possible, right? And select this all, so it looks like this, and then X to delete everything. So I'm going to delete my vertices, right? And when I do that, I need to put it back into solid mode. I'm going to zoom in again, look at the top to make sure that I didn't miss anything, which I did again, just my luck. I'm going to kind of delete the vertices that I don't need to make sure that they're as accurate as possible, right? Same thing on the bottom. There we go. Go back to front mode, right? And just kind of move out. So now I'm in my here's my half sphere again. I'm not back at the half sphere mode. I want to select all, right? And then I want to go on the right where there's a modifier. Here's the modifier wrench. Click the modifier, add a modifier, and add a mirror modifier, right? Once I've done that, I've got the other half of the sphere, yeah? Okay, now I want to deselect all, go into Control Tab to select my faces, and now I can start adding the eyes. Now, before I do that, some people might say, this is cool, you can add the eye here. What about, instead of going to face mode, I showed you face mode, what about modifying some of these vertices first? I want to make my eye round. So if I want to select these vertices, I'm going to select these, I don't know, 4 vertices here. These, a group of 6 cells that I've got right now, right? Okay, cool. I want to select S to scale, right? S to scale, and kind of push it in a little bit to make it more of a rounded shape. Take a look what's happening here with my eye, right? I can make it more, so I can do it this way or this way. I want to make it kind of round. If I do it to one side, it happens to the other side, right? So there's one. There's my eyes kind of round now. That's the first thing I want to do. So I scaled everything so it's round, right? All right. This is cool and all, but I may need to add a couple more cuts. And we're going to talk about adding additional divisions in a second. Okay, cool. Now what I want to do is I want to extrude, and I want to extrude kind of down, right, if I want to. If I look at, I've got these points. Look, take a look at these points here. These are the ones I'm extruding, these vertices. I don't want that. I want to kind of escape there. I made a mistake. I want to change from, I got to go to Control Tab. I want to go to face mode. Here's my face mode, and just select the faces that I want now. Okay, cool. Now that I've selected the faces, I want to press E for extrude and kind of push it down. If I do that, I may want to go down pretty far, right, because I want to create almost like eyes. Maybe I want to put even eyeballs in there eventually, right? Here's another option. So I can do this and push it down so it's in here. That's one. Well, what about if I just press X and I just delete the faces like this? I can do that too, almost creating a mask-like effect. Take a look. Right? Those are the two options. I'm just going to undo that change, right? But I want to do this E, and I want to kind of pull this down here to kind of scale this in. That's the first thing I want to do. Now you might say, well, that's pretty cool, but I want more control time, because this is not enough control for me in this simple low poly face, kind of thing. How do I add more control? Well, obviously you can add more cuts, right? So let me just undo, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So undo. Go back out here, unmirror, unchange, uncut. I'm back out to this area here where I put everything back the way it was, and now I'm one shape again. What if I was to, when I'm here, I haven't applied my my mirror, so there's no more mirror modifier. And in here, when I select all, here's my select all. Before I cut things apart, I go in here and what I want to do is subdivide. So if I click subdivide, I can subdivide this right now. Right now there's only one cut, but what this does is it cuts my, instead of 32 by 32, it goes 64 by 64 in terms of sections and rings, which gives me more control. Warning, more control, more vertices, more CPU power when it comes to rendering, right? But you want more control. So I'm going to deselect everything, go back to Z, right, my Z button. Now this is where the trouble lies. Tell me where the center point is, right? You see, it's hard. It's hard to kind of figure out exactly the center. And there's also, because I only cut it one time, sometimes the center point division, if you notice where this is, if I went to this level, it'd be hard to differentiate which one's the middle and which one's not. You might get yourself into trouble. Let's undo, undo, undo. So I'm going to go back out to the number of points that I had before. All right, cool. And again, I'm using, here's my front ortho mode. I'm going to get rid of the points. I'll do the same thing again, B for cut. I'm going to do this a couple times just so you see it a couple times, so you don't get confused, guys. I'm going to kill all these points off. So I'm going to delete the vertices, go in and modify, make sure that I get everything gone first. There's another way you can do things. Get rid of the extra vertices here, because sometimes we got these little remnants going on, right? So I didn't quite capture these. And go into front mode again from an orthographic view, pull out, right? Go up. You guys can see where I'm going, right? So your challenge is to make your face, right? I'm just showing you different ways of approaching this problem, right? Here's my front ortho mode. I'm going to add, first of all, I'm going to select all, right? So select all. I can subdivide here because I've already cut it in half. Now it's easier for me to subdivide, right? In fact, I can subdivide at any time, right? This is not a bad time to do it. If I don't feel comfortable doing it at that point, I could simply add the modifier now, the mirror modifier, like I did before, right? I'm in, and I'll go into solid mode again. Select the area that I want my eyes in, just like I did last time. So let's say again, I want this area to be my eyes, right? So, oops. Let's select my 4 points for my eyes. So I want to make this kind of this area here round. I want to choose S for scale, and I'm going to pull in, so it's more of a rounded eye. I can do that. That's the first piece, right? And now that I've got this, and I've seen the shape of my eye, now I subdivide. I select all, right? And I subdivide this now. Now what happens is I get more granular control over my eye. Take a look, right? Now I deselect everything, and I've got my eye, more cuts, and now I maybe select some of these outer ones again, like this one, maybe this one, these 4 vertices, and I want to kind of scale out just a touch, just to make it a little bit more rounder, or a little bit whatever it is. I can change that. These top vertices here, right? Scale in again to make it a little bit more round or flat. Maybe what I also want to do is pull this one to the left, right? And pull this one to the right to kind of create that more of an eye look to it. Then again, I want to kind of pull these ones in. So this one, this one, this one, and this one. I want to kind of pull this just in a touch more to make that eye shape a little better, right? And then maybe pull these ones, this one, this one, this one, and this one out a little bit. So I want to kind of move those out. Same thing with these ones here, this one, this one. So again, I'm trying to match up the same ones, right? So I'm going to kind of scale these out. Same thing with these ones. So again, making the shape as round or as eye-like as possible. If you want to zoom into that area, and you find it better to look at that area from the front, so to speak, you want to kind of zoom in there. It's also not a bad practice. I got the general idea what my eye is looking like, and now I want to kind of zoom into the eye to kind of see how I can make it more symmetrical, right? So I'm going to select that one. I think it's still a little bit pointy for me. Shift select, shift select, shift select, and maybe even pull those in a little bit more. And again, I'm deselecting with my left mouse button, and this is still a little pointy for me, so I'm going to kind of pull this in a little bit more until I have my eye. Would you agree? A little better? Okay. Now the great thing is, I don't have to figure this one out. This side is being done automatically for me, so I only have to work one eye at a time, right? This is the great thing. So here's my eye. Now I want to select here's one thing that also people do is they want to select this whole area now. So I'm going to go into different select mode. I'm going to go Control Tab, go into Face Mode, and start selecting the faces that I want. So I can select all these faces, right? So here's all my faces that I want to select one at a time. Now I got my eye. And now I want to extrude. This is where I like this better. When I extrude, I create extra points. And then I press Enter. I've got a whole selection more of points. And then I can extrude again and push down, right? And again, I'm pulling in to do that, like pushing to the left. So until my eye kind of sinks down into another level. Okay, you can keep going with that. I can do it again. Press E for extrude, Enter, E for extrude, and then push down more. And then it'll keep pushing down so that we don't see the eye anymore. And so that's more of some details there. A little bit of a better eye. Okay, how about the nose? This is where we're going to get some complexity involved, right? What do you recommend? Anybody have a recommendation? I want to pop out the nose. Okay, well, there's some tricks again to use, right? Tricks. Here's something you can do for the nose, right? The nose is probably going to be around here somewhere, right? That's how I see it, right? So here's where the nose is going to be. And I can select kind of a rounder area for my nose. Maybe if I want to give it a nose ridge, I might even start up here and start pulling this out like this, right? Nose ridge, right? Sometimes I want to turn something on called proportional editing. Here's where you can turn on proportional editing. See down here? Way down here. The shortcut key for proportional editing is O, right? So if I press O, now I'm on proportional editing. I'm in proportional editing. What it does is when I start selecting stuff, right? And again, if you notice my cursor, see my cursor? My cursor's got this ring. I can actually change the size of my ring that I look at. So if I select this thing right here, and if I start selecting different things, when I start using proportional editing, example, I want to make my nose. So here's my selection for my nose, right, approximately. By the way, if I want more cuts, I can subdivide again. That's the easiest way to do it. But here's my nose, right? And what I want to do is I want to kind of, I don't know, kind of pull it out a little bit. What happens when I use proportional editing? See my sphere? Once I start doing this, if I start yanking this out, if I go to proportional editing, let's just undo here for a second, right? If I start pulling this out, see my sphere, this big sphere, do you see it? A big circle? I can actually zoom that circle in. So the influence that my proportional editing has, I'm just scrolling in to do that, is smaller and smaller. So I don't affect the whole face, just part of the face. Because when I start moving this stuff out like this, not only that stuff moves out, but the whole thing moves down. Look, take a look. Everything adjusts from my nose. That's what proportional editing does for you, right? Also, I may want to look at my nose from a different angle because, you know, right now I'm looking at it from the front. Maybe I want to look at it from the right, right? So there's my right side, there's my nose. And does this seem to be where my nose is going to be? If I want to do that, I may want to press this Y coordinator, pull this on the Y side, and I want to use proportional editing to do that. So first, my proportional editing pulls the face out a little bit. That's the first thing I do. I can turn proportional editing off. If I press O again, toggle on and off, and now I can press this area just forward, just a little bit more. So I've kind of pulled this out. And if you notice, both sides of my face are kind of pulled out in this area. It actually is deformed my face a little bit. Same thing if I want to do proportional editing for the eye. If I want to kind of push the eye in here, like for example, let's say, again, I can use C-select mode. If I use my C-select mode, I can scroll out with C-select mode. Here's my C-selector. If I press C, right, and I can scroll out or in. So I can scroll in. So only select the areas that I want, right? And I can use proportional editing mode. So I press O. So here is first I go O for proportional editing mode on. Then I press C-select mode on. I can scroll up so I have a bigger influence of what I'm selecting, right? So when I click it one time, I get all this selected all at once, right, with C. So until I select everything I want, right? And now because proportional editing is on, that I've selected this, I can press escape and I can actually pull this down, and if you notice, the whole eye moves up and down, right? Almost like a ridge. Look what I can do. I can create almost like an eyebrow ridge. Watch. Watch this. Right? It's almost like a ridge on the face with proportional editing mode. It's kind of neat, right? I want to try and do this again from the side, so I'm going to go to the right side, and what I want to do is either sink it in or pull it out. So maybe in a little bit. So the eyes are pulled in a little bit, receded in the face, right? So I'm pulling on this y-axis here, just receding it from the face, making it a little bit flatter, right? And maybe I want to pull it up in the Z direction just to pull it up a little bit, right? I can also, this is neat, I can also use the rotation tools by pressing R, right? And rotating the eye so that it's a little bit to the side. Take a look how everything rotates in proportional mode, right? Right, so there's my eyes rotating, and it rotates all of those things, right? Isn't that neat? I'm going to deselect all now. So I think I've fooled enough around with the shape of the face, what I want. I need to make a nose a little bigger than what I've got. I want to kind of pull it up more. So now I want to select more of the center line of my nose. I'm still using proportional editing mode, but now when I do that with my nose, I want to reduce the influence. So if I just scroll down, I only have these things kind of affect my nose. There's my nose popping out, right? Because I've changed the size of my influence. The more I scroll up, the bigger the influence my nose will have, as opposed if I scroll down at the same time that I'm pulling up, I can change the influence. There we go. There's my nose starting to pull up a little bit. I think I want to do a little bit more on the bottom side of my nose here, right? And again, I want to pull this up, and I want to change my influence so it's smaller or bigger. The more I pull up, the more tilted up my nose will be, or down, right? Up makes more sense for this particular case. If I want to make it move out, I want to just go to the side and move the nose out a little bit. So I've actually get a bit of a ridge on the nose. Again, this won't be perfect, guys, but it'll get better and better as we go. And remember, we're doing this step by step. Modeling takes a long time to do, right? Okay, cool. Maybe I want to pull this out just a little bit more, and a little down, and a little bit more, and a little down. Take a look at mine now. Here's my big nose I'm making for this guy, right? Okay, here's the nose. I've got my nose. I need my nares. That's my nose holes, if you will, right? So I'm going to I need to go over here, probably put a nair in here, but you know what? I need more granular detail. What do? I could subdivide, right? That's one thing I do, but just to keep it low poly, I want to kind of move this one in. So I'm choosing this one, and I want to move it up, it looks like. So I'm going to use this thing. I'm going to extrude. I'm going to press Enter. I'm going to extrude again and press up. So I'm going to pull this thing up. One thing that I have to do, sorry, I have to undo that. I got to escape from proportional mode in this particular case. So I move this nair up here. There's my nose hairs, my nose holes, if you will. Okay, cool. We've kind of got a bit of a nose. And you know what? I need a bit of an eyebrow ridge, right? So let's do that now. So I'm going to go back to proportional editing with the O button, and I'm going to select my eyebrow ridge right across here, right? Maybe make it like this. This is my eyebrow ridge. Does that make sense? Take a look. So I want my eyebrow ridge to kind of come out. So how do I do that? I press, I'm going to scale it out with E. Now, if you notice, if I don't do proportional, look what happens. If I don't do proportional editing, it does this. Look, that's not what I want, right? I want to use proportional editing, so I want to press, I want to go O. So my proportional editing has to be on, right? So it's on, enabled. And what I want to do is, as I pull up, I want to increase or decrease my influence. This is my influence, circle of influence here. So this is the stuff that I want to change, right? And I want to do kind of pull it out. I want the whole ridge line to be out, almost like a ridge, like an eyebrow ridge. There we go, right? So the eyebrow ridge pulls out a little bit and maybe a little bit up, right, to kind of create that eyebrow ridge, right? There we go. Now my face is coming together, right? All right. How about cheekbones? Cheekbones, right? Because I've kind of got my eyebrow ridge going. You guys following along? I want to do this cheekbone right about here, right? So I'm going to kind of do the same thing with the cheekbone. Select this whole area. This is important to do. Sometimes I want to use C for my selection mode because I want to kind of pick an area to select. C does that. And I can, again, with C, I can change my sphere of influence to select more or less of an area. And it works really nicely with proportional editing mode, right? So I want to kind of go in there, and I want to kind of pull this out, the ridge. And same thing with over here, pull this in a little bit, just to give myself a little bit of cheekbones. Sometimes I want to look at it from different angles, like here I want to kind of pull my cheekbones out a little bit. Now if you notice how my eyes change a little bit too, right? So I want to kind of deselect, I want to use my C button, I want to select part of my ridge and then deselect that, pull that in a little bit. So cheekbones, a little bit of cheekbone there. And now I want to kind of sink my cheeks in there. So this jowl, this part of my mouth area here, I want to push in. So I'm going to use C again. I'm going to deselect all first. I'm going to use C again to select this area. Make my sphere of influence bigger, right, by scrolling up, right? So get this whole area down here. And what I want to do here is I want to kind of pull this in like this. Take a look. So kind of create almost like the jowls of my face, right? So you can also do it from the side. Pull this in. Right? Pull this in. Right? Take a look. Not bad, right? As I'm modeling things. And as you can see, there's some other areas that I got to take care of here. So I've pushed this whole area in, but not my chin. I think my chin needs to come out, eh? What do you think? So I think my chin is down here. So let's just select my chin and pull my chin out. Right? So I'm going to deselect all. And then from here, select this large area with C. This large area down here. And I want to pull my chin out, right? So here's my chin. I'm going to pull this out here like this. Again, do the same thing with my C. Deselect all. Deselect all. Go, oops. I want to go into select mode again, and I want to just decrease my influence even more, right? And again, you can use wireframe. Sometimes that helps as well. I'm just going to pull my chin out more. So kind of create my mouth ridge by pulling my chin out. Maybe pulling this down just a little bit. And I can see where my mouth is going to be. I haven't made my mouth yet, right? But I can create my head. Right? What do you think? You guys getting it? The idea here, and again, we're not anywhere near finished, right? But here, let me just go into, just to finish off, because we're near the end of our time together. I know, this is where I have the most fun too, right? But if you look here in the middle, I want to deselect all, and I want to go into this piece here where I can definitely form lips if I want to, or I can just make a hole for the mouth, right? So if I'm going to use proportional editing mode to kind of select these specific points, right? And then I can kind of pull this into the mouth, right? So here's, I'm pulling it more in. I can turn proportional editing off, right? And then I can just kind of extrude, enter, extrude, and pull in. And then I can have holes for the mouth. Now you see this little area in the middle? This is the join. This is the area that we have to kind of fix from a mouth perspective. Because I also get these areas here. So if I just undo, this is where, you know, we have a little bit of issues. When it comes to the middle, right, I want to affect my middle line, right? And the only way I can affect my middle line, because I don't really have points in the middle, I only have points on the side because the way I split my sphere in half, right? I may have to do this piece after I join things together. So if you notice again, if I go to extrude, enter, and then extrude and pull in, this is okay because it gets rid of the mouth, but I also have this like middle area that I have to fix later. Okay, so how does this thing look now? Kind of looks weird, right? And maybe I want to pull in these pieces too. So I want to, remember, there's nothing wrong with undoing a couple of times until you get the right effect. Like I want to extrude and then enter, and then when I do that now, I can kind of pull in. If there's any piece I need to fix later on, I can always fix those pieces, right? Okay, cool. So I've got my weird looking face, and now let's say I'm satisfied. Hey, let's put a few horns on this guy, a couple horns, right? Because I want to make him like a demon, right? So let's say the best way to do that, of course, is deselect all, go C for select, and if you notice, I want to zoom in. I don't want as much influence on my horn up here. I think my horn should be probably somewhere in here. So I'm going to select this area. I want to go to Escape and then go into Proportional Editing Mode, right? And what I want to do here is I want to pull this out. There's a couple ways I could do this. I can also press the G button, right? The G button also gives me like kind of, you know, instead of granular control, let's say. So I kind of pull it out like this first, right? And then again, I can press E for extrude and enter, and then press the G button again and pull it out more. So I can create the horns on this guy's head, right? And it's great for organic stuff. Like proportional editing is awesome for that. I'm going to press it again. So I'm going to press E for extrude, enter, and then press G to pulling things out again. So I can kind of continue to create this guy's horns here, right? And now I want to kind of pull straight up in a kind of weird thing. So I'm going to put like E for extrude and then enter, and then press G. But I'm going to kind of limit it to the Z. I'm kind of pull this up just a little bit to make it more rounded. Right, and there we go. We got a bit of a horn creature, right? And if I want to, I can make it a point by using S to scale and kind of, you know, pulling right in here, right? S to scale, right? There we go. Okay, that might look okay. You might be satisfied with it, may not. And this is like where we get to, you know, the back of the head looks pretty round. You probably want to flatten that out as well, right? So again, I can go deselect all, press C for select, increase my sphere of influence here so it's really big, right? For C for select, I'm going to select the whole back of the head, right? Now we're still in proportional editing mode, and I want to flatten this out. So what I want to do is I want to pull this in, right? Pull this in. And I want to extrude, enter, and extrude and pull into the head, right? So kind of make that weird looking ridge in the back of his head, right? And maybe move it out with G, right? So kind of move it around. So kind of give him a really weird ridgy head, the side of his face, right? And if I don't look like that, because I think that's kind of weird, I think I messed up there. What can I do? I can always go back. I can always go Control Z, right? It's back to that fat head that I had before, right? And maybe I want to pull in a little bit. So I want to do E for extrude, or enter, and then S for size, and then kind of, if you ever look what happens, I can actually split the guy's head in half in the back, right? So remember, we're still in mirror mode, right? So kind of escape from there. And kind of move this in a little bit, just a touch, just so his head is not exactly perfectly round, because I don't want to do that. And maybe what I want to do is I want to flatten this piece out, this piece here. So maybe deselect all, use C with a smaller influence, right? Select less areas here, like in the back, just this piece of his head. I'm going to do it randomly here, right? So this piece here in his head, and then kind of just, there we go. That part there, not all of his head. Escape, and then kind of push this in a little bit. Deselect C, smaller influence. Draw this piece of his head, right? Escape, and then push this in again, and so on. Slowly, he's getting the right shape. Like the thing is with this, with any kind of modeling, it doesn't happen all at once. You can do some really cool changes really quickly, but a lot of the modeling that we're going to be doing is going to happen slow. Okay, cool. So maybe I've got what I want with this guy's face. Maybe I don't. Maybe there's some things you could do differently, guys. I leave that to you. This is the challenge. I want you to come back next week or next day, Friday. I want you to show me your face as an example. Let's say I want to go back out of editing mode, and here I am in solid mode now. I've got a bit of the head or the face of my object, whatever it is, right? But I want to kind of smooth it out. This is a great time to smooth it out. Take a look. If I smooth it out, it looks a little bit more realistic, right? I still got that ugly ridge in the back of his head that I can fix later. That's the join. The other thing is if I go back in edit mode, you notice my modifier, add modifier, I need to apply it. If I apply my modifier now, and what it says of course is that I have to, it cannot be applied in edit mode. I got to go into object mode to apply my modifier. Now I've got one face, one head, and now my mirroring is stopped. If I go back into edit mode, everything is editable now, right? Sometimes you need to go there because I don't want to edit, I don't want to mirror anything anymore, right? And I want to smooth things out. There's one mode we haven't hit, and that's Sculpt Mode. If I go back into Sculpt Mode, so I've gone Object Mode, I've done Edit Mode, and now I'm going to do Sculpt Mode. Let's try that before we end for the day. So here I am in Sculpt Mode, and I want to increase the size of my influence. If you notice here on the left-hand side, right, I can start modify here on the left. Here's my stroke, right? Here's the space for my stroke. And on the left, you see if I hover over this thing, it says the radius of my brush. If I want to increase my radius, my brush size becomes bigger, right? This is also something that's very interesting to do, right? Here's my brush size. I can do things like add ridges to this guy, right? Like this. Right? So I've added a ridge to the guy's head. And this would have been really good to do in mirror mode, right? Mirror mode, right? But I can still do it without mirroring. Like for example, I want to add a ridge to the middle of his head, right? Like a Klingon, you know, one of those kind of things, right? I can kind of sculpt out, and I can also, this is add, I can also subtract. So I want to subtract, I want to change the size of his, size I sculpt. I want to change the size of his, you know, stuff here, right? So I want to kind of subtract. If you notice, it does it in a mirroring kind of way. Same thing with the bottom, with the bottom, the back of his head. If I want to kind of subtract to kind of sculpt out a little bit of what his head will look like. If you notice now, it gets the shape. Take a look. This is my guy now. Even the bottom of his face, maybe his chin is a little bit too pronounced, so I want to kind of make it more of a chin, right? So I'm getting more of a creature going on, right? And this is where and right in here is where the area that I'm going to probably put his head on the neck. So it's okay if I kind of sculpt out what his jaw is going to look like, right? And the same thing goes for here if I want to kind of take more away from his mouth, you know, to make more of an opening. And same thing with his eyes. I want to sculpt out his eyes, kind of take away more of an opening for his eyes. So I can subtract and I can add. So I can subtract areas and I can add areas until you get like a really cool looking monster. Right? And if I go back into edit mode, if I go back to edit mode now, you see that I've got all these control points that I can go back into and I can start modifying more and more. So again, your challenge by next day is kind of create your own face, your own creature. Take your time with it. This is a really quick rendering of what we've done. Try and come up with something that looks like something. Like don't just make a creature like this. Making creatures is the easiest thing, as you can see. It's not difficult to make an ugly thing, right? Try and make something that doesn't look so ugly. Try and make it so that the face is more proportional, makes it more human-like, right? That's more challenging to do. And the way to do that, of course, is to use the models. To take a look at a picture, like an actual image, and then try and use that image as a background to create your face. There's our creature for the day. Creature feature. Any questions around this stuff before we depart for the day? A little bit more detail in terms of modeling. Again, as a recap for the Blender side, we talked about proportional editing, right? Proportional editing with the O button. That's how I was able to pull those out. We talked about mirroring mode, right? By using this mirror modifier. We also went into a bit of sculpt mode, right? I'm not sure if there's a class after this. There may be, there may not be. Is there? There is? Huh? In here?
No, not here. So.
Yeah. So you guys have to go. It's time to go. I don't want to stop you guys. But other than that, we'll stop recording for today and we'll go back into some of this on Friday.